All right, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 in this Redstone Basics series. Now, in the last video, we covered quite a bit of confusing topics, so I thought for today we would just focus on one component that's a little bit easier to understand, which is the redstone torch. Now, just like the dust, in my opinion, the redstone torch is one of the most important components when making your own redstone contraptions. So let's go ahead, find ourselves an empty spot over here, and let's get right on into it. So the purpose of a redstone torch is to essentially act as a power source that you can turn on and off. It's very similar to a lever, and they share a lot of the same properties. So throughout this video, I'm going to be comparing it to the lever just to show you guys the similarities and when to use each one. To start off, let's take a look at this lever right here because we already understand how it works. Now, if we were to flip this lever on, both this block and this block that it's attached to, both of these will become powered blocks, which means that any piece of redstone dust or output block that it's attached to will become switched on. So for example, this one right here is drawing power directly from the block. This one right here is drawing power directly from the lever. And this one right here, again, is drawing power directly from the lever. So now the most important difference between a normal power source and a redstone torch is that the redstone torch does not power the block that it is directly attached to. So for example, if we were to try putting a piece of dust right here, you can see that it's not being switched on because this block is not powered. However, any block that is directly attached to this torch will work. So for example, this spot works right here. This spot works right here, and all the spots on the side work as well. Now, another big difference between the torch and a normal power source is that the torch will power the block that is directly on top of it. And the example that I like to make is just imagine all of the flames from the torch going up into this block. So now this is a powered block right here, which again means that any output block or piece of redstone dust will be switched on when touching this block, as you can see. So now I want to show you guys the same scenario with a normal power source. So in this case right here, if we were to flip on this lever, this block is not being powered because it's not directly attached to the power source. However, in this case right here, you can see that the torch is powering this block, so any output block will be switched on. So how do we switch on and off a redstone torch? Now, in the case of a lever, all we have to do is simply click it once to turn it on, and we click it one more time to turn it off. Now, a lot of you guys have probably already noticed that the torch comes in its on state, which means that as soon as we place it down, we don't even need to do anything, and it's already powering and switching on blocks. Now, the way that you turn off a torch is to simply power the block that it's on. So for example, if we were to flick this lever right here, you can see this block is now being powered, which in turn switches off this torch, which in turn switches off the lamp. Now, if we wanted to turn it back on, all we have to do is simply just not power the block anymore. And what this allows us to do is essentially use the torch as an inverter, which means that when the power source is on its off state, the output is on its on state. And when we switch it to its on state right here, the output is now on its off state. Now, this allows us to do a bunch of different things that we would have never been able to do if it weren't for the redstone torch. Now, let's say, for example, in our Minecraft house, we have a light that we only want it to turn off when we step on this pressure plate. Now, this is only made possible because of the torch. This is a very simple example, but I will be going over more complex applications of the torch in future episodes. Another fun and simple way people use torches is to carry redstone signal up a high amount of blocks. So as you can see, I have this very tall tower up here with a redstone lamp up at the top. And if we were to power this block at the bottom, you can see that that redstone lamp turns on. And again, it turns off when we switch it off. Now, what's happening here is that this torch is powering this block, which means that this one turns off. So this block is not powered. So this one turns on and is powering this block, and so forth and so forth. So when we switch this on, they essentially all switch. So now this is turned off. this block is no longer powered. So yeah, and you get the point. Just as a side note, you can actually burn out redstone torches if you turn them on and off too fast. So let's say, for example, we have this lever, and I'm going to click it as fast as possible. And as you can see, eventually you hear that noise, and no matter what we do, it's stuck in its off position. However, eventually you can see that it will come back to life by itself. Now, the exact same thing happens when you try powering the block with the torch itself. Now, as you can see, it's just going to flick for a little bit and eventually burn out. Now, what's happening here is that the torch is trying to power the block, but since the block is powered, it'll turn off the torch. Now, since the torch is turned off, the block will no longer be powered, so the torch will turn on, and it's just going to go for an endless loop until it eventually burns out. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me today. I'm going to end this episode right here. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it was a little bit easier to understand than the last one. And that's it. I'll see everyone in episode 4.